Thank you for joining me. So the practice that we're going to work with now centres around the idea of our awareness of our body's contact with the ground. So when we learn to focus and cultivate attention to the present moment, one of the first things, or the most accessible things to be aware of, is physical sensations. So when we tune into and be aware of our body's contact, certain parts of our body one at a time in contact with the ground, it's there to bring us to the present moment and to allow us to focus and find a bit of ease. Because when we're focusing on one thing, our body's contact with the ground, then it keeps our thoughts from wandering away, and all those things that perhaps play on our minds may just be given a rest. They may probably will come back, but we can find a bit of rest and respite from worries and from things that play on us. So coming to a comfortable position, so I'd encourage you to lie down. You can keep the soles of your feet flat to the floor if there's any kind of discomfort in your lower back, or if it's okay for you and you feel that you want to, you can lengthen your legs away. But of course, if it feels uncomfortable in your lower back, then coming back to semi-supine, so bending your knees, and spend a bit of time just shifting around and making sure that you're comfortable. So always knowing that the first position you come to doesn't necessarily mean that that's the one you have to stay in. But I would encourage you, if you want to move, see if you can resist the urge to move and be aware of it. So if you do need to move, eventually it's a conscious decision. So just in this way, it just prevents us from fidgeting or making unconscious movements. So allowing yourself to settle. Maybe you can roll the shoulders a little bit, shift the hips. And if it's okay for you to close your eyes, close your eyes. And know that your body breathes, so you don't have to necessarily do anything with your breathing, but I would encourage you to breathe through your nostrils, if it's okay. When we breathe through our nose, it just allows the breath to be a little bit deeper, a little bit quieter, purifies, warms and moistens the breath that comes into our lungs. But of course, if you need to breathe through your mouth, then you breathe through your mouth, but every now and again, see if you can breathe through your nose. So knowing that your body knows how to do its work, it knows how to breathe. And all we're trying to do with this practice is just focus our attention and our thoughts on one thing at a time. So with that in mind, bringing your attention to the back of your head, and perhaps having a sense of the weight of your head. And I'd encourage you not to move unless you really need to, but just feeling the weight of your head resting on the ground, on the floor, on the support beneath. Being aware of the curve of the skull. And just where do you feel the contact of your skull with the ground beneath? And the curve of the skull rounds and rests down into the floor. And as you bring your attention down through to the base of the skull and the back of the neck, be aware that the back of the neck curves away from the floor, so there's space underneath the back of the neck. So we have the contact through the back of the skull, through the back of the head, but then we have space at the back of the neck. The neck curves away up and away from the floor. And then be aware of the curve of the back of the ribs, the upper part of the spine. So noticing and being aware that the thoracic spine curves down and into the floor. And being aware of the ribs rounding round through to the front of the body. And inside the ribs is your heart, your lungs. Perhaps just for a moment, just feeling as you breathe in and the lungs fill up with air, perhaps you can feel a slight pressure of the ribs down into the floor. And as you breathe out, perhaps just a slight lightening of the load. But being aware of the curve of the upper spine down into the floor. You continue to breathe, taking your attention down through to the back of the waist, the lumbar spine, and the lumbar spine curves up and away from the floor. And there's usually a slight space at the back of the waist. But if you don't have this, then know that that's okay too. But just being aware, the lumbar spine usually curves up and away from the floor in a concave shape. As you move your attention down through to the sacral area, just below the lumbar spine, just below the back of the waist. And the lumbar spine is the sacral spine is part of the pelvis. And the sacrum are fused, heavy bones, strong bones. So the sacrum or the pelvis can sometimes feel quite heavy and curves down and round into the floor. And then moving your attention through to the very base of your spine. Imagine you can feel or see the very base of your spine, the tailbone curves up and away from the floor. And you don't have to do any of these things. This is the shape of your body, and the spine is almost as though it's in two S shapes. And the spine undulates and fluctuates and moves in relation to the breath, in relation to your contact with the floor. And the more relaxed your outer body can be, the more feeling we have on the inside of our body. So being aware of your spine, resting, supported by the ground beneath. And then feeling the hips, the right hip and the left hip, the back of the hips, the area between, the back of the thighs. And if your legs are bent, being aware of the space underneath the legs. If your legs are straight along the floor, can you feel the back of the thighs? Slight space at the back of the knees. Can you feel the curve of the calves? Slight space at the back of the ankles. Can you feel the weight of your heels? So being aware of the whole of your leg from the heel all the way up through to the hips. Resting, supported, quiet. And we don't have to hold on to those parts of our body. We can let go when we know that we're supported. Now taking your attention to your hands. And just notice where your hands are, whether the palms are up or down. Feel the texture, quality of the ground beneath the hands. And not moving your hands, but just feeling the contact of your hands with the ground beneath. And when we know that we're supported, perhaps we can let go. There's a possibility of letting go, not having to move, not having to do. You move your attention a little bit higher to the wrists, to the forearms, to the elbows, to the upper arms, and to the shoulders. And feeling the back of the shoulders, that contact you have with the ground beneath the shoulders and the space between the shoulders, the base of the neck. And can you feel your shoulders resting, supported, quiet? Knowing that we can hold a lot of tension, a lot of worry, a lot of fear, grief, anger. Intense emotions are held in our shoulders, just as they are in our hips, in those parts of our body that can tighten. But now, can we feel our body resting on the floor? And know that we don't have to react or respond to anything, but just feel what we feel. And know that this place is a safe place, and our body is supported. And our mind can be quiet, and our breath can be free. So knowing that your body breathes and it knows how to breathe, and can you just for a few moments bring your attention to your breathing and notice where you feel the breath. There's no right or wrong. There's no opinion to be had or judgment to be made. Just allowing your body to be as it is, and your breath to be as it is, and your thoughts to be as they are. And knowing that in this moment, everything is just as it should be. And there's quietness, there's support, there's safety, and there's ease. And maybe just for a moment there's a possibility that you can feel, when you breathe in, the whole of your body breathing. And as you breathe out, perhaps there's a possibility that you can allow the whole of your body to feel the contact of the ground beneath. knowing that you're supported. You can let go of your body, knowing that you're safe. You can find rest in your body. And cultivating this attention nourishes. And the quietness allows you to calm. And then as we prepare to come out of this practice, knowing how you feel right now, so noticing if your body feels quite easy, quite comfortable, quite calm, if your thoughts are quietened down, noticing and observing all these things and naming them to yourself, so knowing how you feel right now. If you feel something else, knowing that that's okay too, but knowing how you feel. And then in your own time, starting to move your fingers, move your toes. You can roll your shoulders, you can turn your head from side to side, whatever feels nice for you. You can stretch if you like, stretch the arms overhead, open the eyes, know where you are. Coming over onto your side if you're lying down. If you're still sitting up, you can just drop the gaze down. And take your time, whatever position you're in, take your time to bring yourself back to upright and to continue with the rest of your day. And thank you for joining me.